This is the all-new 2017 Suzuki Swift, and we're in Nice and Monaco. We're on our way to Monaco at the moment, which is an interesting place to launch a car, and it's rush hour at the moment, so we'll see how this goes. I will try not to swear. Now, this is the all-new Suzuki Swift, and the Suzuki Swift has been a fantastic driving little car since it's been around, really. Everyone kind of fell in love with it, fell in love with the Suzuki Swift Sport, and I had a Swift Sport probably 6 months ago for a week or so, and just loved it, loved the driving experience, and it was because it was light, simple and fun. And that's something that Suzuki has got to capture again with this new Swift, so it's quite a challenge actually, because the old Swift, particularly the Sport, had a really big following. Now, Suzuki claims that this new Swift is 10% lighter, 19% more powerful across the range, and 8% more economical as well. And for me, what's most important out of those three is the fact that this is 10% lighter. So shaving 10% off a car's weight from one generation to the next is a huge achievement, because weight kills everything, really. It ruins the fuel economy, it ruins the performance, but it also ruins the way a car drives, because if you've got a heavy car, it's just gonna be lazy to respond. And so shaving 10% off a car, off of this new Swift, is really, really good. And in fact, the lightest of this current new generation Swift will be 890 kilos, which is nothing. Now, the model lineup for the new Swift is perhaps a little bit more complicated than with the old car. You've got 3 trim levels. You've got SZ3, SZT and SZ5. Those are the 3 trim levels. But you can also now get a hybrid powertrain. That's something you never used to be able to do with the old Swift. Now, as is the way with filming, things don't often go to plan, and we are actually stuck in traffic just outside Monaco, waiting to go in. But for the sake of telling you about this new Swift, I might as well just carry on talking. So, new Swift has 2 engines. One is a 1 litre 3-cylinder, the other one is a 1.2 litre 4-cylinder. Now, 1.2, it's got 90 brake horsepower, 88 foot-pounds of torque. 0 to 60 is about 11.9 seconds, and the top speed is 111 miles an hour. Now, the other engine is a 1 litre 3-cylinder engine, turbocharged, first for a Swift, and it's called a booster jet. I quite like that name. 111 horsepower, 125 foot-pounds of torque, 0 to 60 is 10.6 seconds, and the top speed is 121 miles an hour. Now, if you're still with me, it might be about to get a little bit more complicated, because, as I said, this car is now available with a hybrid powertrain system. Now, most hybrids, you kind of think they're going to be really, really heavy, but actually Suzuki's hybrid system is quite small, so it only adds about 10 kilos of extra weight to any Suzuki Swift that it's in. That's really not a lot for a hybrid system. Now, unfortunately, because of the way hybrid power systems work, you can't just add the output from the system itself to whatever car you're driving. So the exact figures are something of a mystery at this point in time, but Suzuki say that it produces 2.5 kilowatts of power and also an extra 50 newton meters of torque. But that's at its peak, and you can't just add the peak of the hybrid system to the peak of the engine, because they don't top out at the same space. Now, you can get the hybrid on both the 1 litre and the 1.2, and it kind of changes the performance slightly, but for the 1.2, 0 to 60 takes 12.6 seconds, so a slightly bit longer, 7/10 longer, whereas in the 1 litre 3-cylinder engine, it actually reduces the 0 to 60 time by 0.6 of a second, so it's exactly 10 seconds. Now, as I said, I'm sorry the fact that I'm having to review this whilst I'm driving around in traffic, but sometimes that's just the way these things are. But I can at least tell you a bit about the car. We've been driving it all day now. We came here, flew here this morning to Nice, and we've been driving it for the day. And first impressions, good car and good powertrain. All of the cars we're driving here are 1 litre 3-cylinder engines with the hybrid, so we haven't had a chance to just try a non-hybrid system or the 1.2. These are all 1 litres, and it seems to be quite a good engine to me. The hybrid system, you don't notice it, and I think one of the main things, the reason why you don't notice it is because you've got a manual gearbox, and I really like that. It's so much better than having a CVT, for example. Now, driving on some of the more entertaining roads up and around Nice, I can tell you that the engine it pulls pretty well actually for a 3-cylinder, and like I said, you get that kind of little bit of extra boost from the hybrid system. It's not fast, I'll grant you that. 10.6 seconds isn't fast, but Actually, it pulls pretty well, and what I like, again, it's that lightweight thing. The fact that this car doesn't weigh very much means you can just carry more speed through the corners, and actually that's part of the fun of this car, is although it's not that fast, there's a joy to be found in just keeping that momentum going and you can keep your foot on the accelerator for quite long periods of time, and you're not going to be doing mad speed. So I quite like that. It's a charm to it. Now, Suzuki have actually been selling this car in Japan since the back end of 2016, but we don't get this car until June 2017, so we've still got a few more months to wait. But they could have just made the same car and just sold it in Europe, but instead they've changed it quite dramatically to sell in Europe. Suspension-wise, one of the first things that they did was take this car to the UK to get it tested in the UK. So when we get it in the UK, it should drive and behave pretty well and be very capable of dealing with our roads, basically. And then they took it to Germany, and then they did some of the high-speed testing there, and again on some twisty roads through the Alps, and they started to get a feel and tune the chassis so it would be better suited for Europe. Steering, it's a variable ratio system, so the more you turn the wheel, the more steering angle you're going to get. And it's alright actually, it's a little bit light off-centre, kind of what I expected, but actually once you start going through some faster corners, it's got a nice weight to it, it's consistent, and you actually get a very good idea of what the tyres are doing. I'm surprised at that, because most new small cars you drive nowadays, you don't really know what's going on, but in this, you seem to get quite a bit of feedback. Again, that'll be good for when a Swift Sport arrives in about a year's time. Now, gearboxes, you can either have a 5-speed manual gearbox or a 6-speed automatic, and it's just a conventional, normal automatic gearbox. Now, you can get either gearbox across either engine, either the 1 litre or the 1.2. But if you go for the hybrid, unusually again, you can only have the manual gearbox, which I quite like because it adds some fun to the hybrid powertrain, when hybrids are so often just, they have a CVT gearbox thrown at them, and I'm kind of showing the fact that I really don't like CVT gearboxes. So it adds quite a bit more fun to the experience when you've got a 5-speed manual to deal with. Looks wise, when I saw it at the Geneva Motor Show, I wasn't that convinced, because it looked similar to the old Swift, but just in places it looked less distinct almost to my eyes. But having seen it outside of the lights of the Motor Show, it does look better in the metal. Definitely looks better in the metal than it did in the pictures and also under the lights of the Motor Show. The main thing for me, I think, is the fact that this weighs so little. Taking 100 kilos out of a car really, really just improves how a car handles massively, and you can feel that driving it. It feels so lightweight. You can just chuck it around, play with it, and it laps it up.